Chapter 29 of Montezuma's Daughter by H. Rider Haggard. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Patrick 79. Chapter 29. De Garcia Speaks His Mind. At first I was not taken into the chamber that I had left, but placed in a little room opening out of it, where the guard slept. Here I waited, bound hand and foot, and watched by two soldiers with drawn swords. As I waited, torn by rage and fear, I heard the noise of hammering through the wall, followed by the sounds of groans. At length the suspense came to an end. A door was opened, and two fierce Talascan Indians came through it and seized me by the hair and ears, dragging me thus into my own chamber. "Poor devil," I heard one of the Spanish soldiers say as I went. "Apostate or no, I'm sorry for him. Oh, this is bloody work." Then the door closed, and I was in the place of torment. The room was darkened, for a cloth had been hung in front of the window bars, but its gloom was relieved by certain fires that burned in braziers. It was by the light of these fires chiefly that I saw the sight. On the floor of the chamber were placed three solid chairs, one of them empty. The other two were filled by none other than Guatemoc, Emperor of the Aztecs, and by his friend and mine the cacique Tacuba. They were bound in the chairs. The burning braziers were placed at their feet. Behind them stood a clerk with paper and an inkhorn, and around them Indians were busy at some dreadful task, directed to it by some Spanish soldiers. Near the third chair stood another Spaniard, who as yet took no part in the play. It was de Garcia. As I looked, an Indian lifted one of the braziers, and seizing the naked foot of the Tacuban prince, thrust it down on the glowing coals. For a while there was silence. Then the Tacuban broke into groans. Guatemoc turned his head towards him and spoke, and as he spoke I saw that his foot also was resting in the flames of a brazier. "Why do you complain, friend?" he said in a steady voice, "when I keep silence? I then take my pleasure in a bed. Follow me now as always, friend, and be silent beneath your sufferings." The clerk wrote down his words, for I heard the quill scratching on the paper, and as he wrote, Guatemoc turned his head and saw me. His face was grey with pain. Still he spoke as 100 times I had heard him speak at council, slowly and clearly. "Alas, are you also here, my friend Teule?" he said. "I hoped that they had spared you. See how these Spaniards keep faith. Malinche swore to treat me with all honour. Oh, behold how he honours me, with hot coals on my feet and pincers for my flesh. They think that we have buried the treasure, Teule, and would wring it secret from us. You know that it's a lie. If we had treasure, would we not give it gladly to our conquerors, the God-born sons of Quetzal? You know that there is nothing left except the ruins of our cities and the bones of our dead." Here he ceased suddenly, for the demon who tormented him struck him across the mouth, saying, "Silence, dog!" But I understood, and I swore in my heart that I would die ere I revealed my brother's secret. This was the last triumph that Guatemoc could win, to keep his gold from the grasp of the greedy Spaniard, and that victory at least he should not lose through me. So I swore, and very soon my oath must be put to the test. For at a moment from de Garcia the Tlascalans seized me and bound me to the third chair. Then he spoke into my ear in Castilian. "Strange are the ways of Providence, cousin Wingfield. You have hunted me across the world, and several times we have met, always to your sorrow. I thought I had you in the slave ship. I thought the sharks had you in the water, but somehow you escaped me, whom you came to hunt. When I knew it, I grieved, but now I grieve no more, for I see that you were reserved for this moment. Cousin Wingfield, it shall go hard if you escape me this time, and yet I think that we shall spend some days together before we part. Now, I will be courteous for you. You may have a choice of evils. How shall we begin? The resources at my command are not all that we could wish, alas. The Holy Office is not yet here with the unholy armoury, but still I have done my best. These fellows do not understand their art. Hot coals are their only inspiration. I, you see, have several, and he pointed to various instruments of torture. Now, which will you select? I made no answer, for I had determined that I would speak no word and utter no cry, do what they might with me. Let me think, went on de Garcia, smoothing his beard. Ah, I have it. Here, slaves. Now I will not renew my own agonies, or awake the horror of any who may chance to read what I have written by describing what befell me after this. Suffice it to say that for 2 hours and more this devil, helped in his task by the Tlascalans, worked his wicked will upon me. One by one torments were administered to me with a skill and ingenuity that cannot often be surpassed, and when at times I fainted, I was recovered by cold water being dashed upon me, and spirits poured down my throat. And yet, I say it with some pride, during those 2 dreadful hours I uttered no groan, however great my sufferings, and spoke no word, good or bad. Nor was it only bodily pain that I must bear, for all this while my enemy mocked me with bitter words which tormented my soul, as his instruments and hot coals tormented my body. At length he paused exhausted, and cursed me for an obstinate pig of an Englishman, and at that moment Cortes entered the shambles, and with him Marina. "How goes it?" he said lightly, though his face turned pale at the sight of horror. The cacique at Tacuba has confessed that gold is buried in his garden. The other 2 have said nothing, General," the clerk answered, glancing down his paper. "Brave men indeed," I heard Cortes mutter to himself. Then aloud, "Let the cacique be carried tomorrow to the garden of which he speaks, that he may point out the gold. As for the other 2, cease tormenting them for this day. Perhaps they may find another mind before tomorrow. I trust so. For their own sakes, I trust so." Then he drew to the corner of the room and consulted with Sarceda and the other torturers, leaving Marina face to face with Guatemoc and me. For a while she stared at the prince as though in horror. Then a strange light came into her beautiful eyes, and she spoke to him in a low voice, saying in the Aztec tongue, Do you remember how you once rejected me down yonder in Tabasco, Guatemoc, and what I told you then? That I should grow great in spite of you. You see, it has all come true, and more than true, and you are brought to this. Are you not sorry, Guatemoc? I am sorry, though were I as some women are, perchance I might rejoice to see you thus. Woman, the prince answered in a thick voice, you have betrayed your country, and you have brought me to shame and torment. Yes, had it not been for you, these things had never been. I am sorry indeed, I am sorry that I did not kill you. For the rest, may your name be shameful for ever in the ears of honest men, and your soul be everlastingly accursed, and may you yourself, even before you die, know the bitterness of dishonour and betrayal. Your words were fulfilled, and so mine shall be also. She heard and turned away trembling, and for a while was silent. Then her glance fell upon me, and she began to weep. Alas, poor man, she said, alas, my friend. Oh, weep no more over me, Marina, I answered, speaking in Aztec, for our tears are of no worth. But help me if you may. Ah, that I could, she sobbed, and turning, fled from the place, followed presently by Cortes. Now the Spaniards came in again and removed Guatemoc and the cacique of Tacuba, carrying them in their arms, for they could not walk, and indeed the cacique was in a swoon. Farewell, Teule, said Guatemoc as he passed me. You are indeed a true son of Quetzal, and a gallant man. May the gods reward you in time to come for all that you have suffered for me and mine, since I cannot. Then it was borne out, and these were the last words that I ever heard him utter. Now I was left alone with the Tlascalans and de Garcia, who mocked me as before. A little tired, my friend Wingfield, he said, sneering. Well, the play is rough till you get used to it. A night's sleep will refresh you, and tomorrow you will be a new man. Perhaps you believe that I have done my worst. Oh, fool, this is but the beginning. Also you think doubtless that your obstinacy angers me. Wrong again, my friend. I only pray that you keep your lips sealed to the last. Gladly would I give my share of this hidden gold in payment for 2 more such days with you. I have still much to pay you back, and look you, I have found a way to do it. There are more ways of hurting a man than through his own flesh. For instance, when I wished to be revenged upon your father, I struck him through her whom he loved. Now I have touched you, and you wonder what I mean. Well, I will tell you. Perhaps you may know an Aztec lady of royal blood who is named Otomie. Otomie? What of her? I cried, speaking for the first time, since fear for her stirred me more than all the torments I had borne. A triumph indeed! I have found a way to make you speak at last. Why, then tomorrow you will be full of words. Only this, cousin Wingfield. Otomie, Montezuma's daughter, a very lovely woman by the way, is your wife according to the Indian customs. Well, I know all the story, and, well, she is in my power. I will prove it to you, for she shall be brought here presently, and then you can console each other. For listen, dog, tomorrow she will sit where you are sitting, and before your eyes she shall be dealt with as you have been dealt with. Ha! Then you will talk fast enough. But perhaps it will be a bit too late. And now for the first time I broke down and prayed for mercy, even of my foe. "Spare her," I groaned. "Do what you will with me, but spare her. Surely you must have a heart, even you, for you are human. You can never do this thing, and Cortes would not suffer it." "As for Cortes," he answered, "he will know nothing of it till it is done. I have my warrant that charges me to use every means in my power to force the truth from you. Torture has failed. This alone is left. And for the rest, you must read me ill. You know what it is to hate, for you hate me. Multiply your hate by 10, and you find the sum of mine for you. I hate you for your blood. I hate you because you have your mother's eyes. But much more do I hate you yourself. For did you beat me, a gentleman of Spain, with a thick stick, as though I were a hound? Shall I then shrink from such a deed when I can satisfy my hate by it? Also, perhaps, though you are a brave man, at this moment you know what it is to fear, and are tasting of its agony. Now, I will be open with you, Thomas Wingfield. I fear you. When first I saw you, I feared you as I had no reason to do, and that is why I tried to kill you. And as time has gone by, I have feared you more and more, so much indeed that at times I cannot rest because of the nameless terror that dogs me and which has to do with you. Because of you I fled from Spain. Because of you I have played the coward in more frays than one. The luck has always been mine in this duel between us, and yet I tell you that even as you are, I fear you still. If I dared, I would kill you at once. Only then you would haunt me as your mother haunts me, and also I must answer for it to Cortes. Fear, Cousin Wingfield, is the father of cruelty, and mine makes me cruel to you. Living or dead, I know that you will triumph over me at the last. But it is my turn now, and while you breathe, or while one breathes who is dear to you, I will spend my life to bring you and them to shame and misery and death, as I brought your mother, my cousin, though she forced me to it to save myself. Why not? There is no forgiveness for me. I cannot undo the past. You came to take vengeance on me, and soon or late, by you or through you, it will be glutted. But till then I triumph, aye, even though I must sink to this butcher's work to do it. And suddenly he turned and left the place. Then weakness and suffering overcame me, and I swooned away. When I awoke, it was to find that my bonds had been loosed, and that I lay on some sort of bed, while a woman bent over me, tending me with murmured words of pity and love. The night had fallen, but there was light in the chamber, and by it I saw that woman was none other than Otomie, no longer starved and wretched, but almost as lovely as before the days of siege and hunger. "Otomie, you are here," I gasped through the wounded lips, for with my senses came the memory of de Garcia's threats. "Yes, beloved, it is I," she murmured. "They have suffered that I nurse you, devils though they are. Oh, that I must see you thus, and yet be helpless to avenge you." And she burst into weeping. "Hush," I said, Hush! Have we food? Oh, in plenty. A woman brought it from Marina. Oh, give it to me to eat, Artemy. Now for a while she fed me, and the deadly sickness passed from me, though my poor flesh burned with 100 agonies. Listen, Artemy, have you seen de Garcia? No, my husband. 2 days since I was separated from my sister Tequichpo and the other ladies, but I have been well treated and have seen no Spaniards except the soldiers who led me here, telling me that you were sick. Oh, alas, I knew not from what cause. And again she began to weep. Still, some have seen you, and it is reported that you are my wife. Oh, it is likely enough, she answered, for it was known throughout the Aztec hosts, and such secrets cannot be kept. But why have they treated you thus? Because you fought against them? Are we alone? I asked. Oh, the guard is without, but there are none else in the chamber. Then bend down your head, and I will tell you. And I told her all. When I had done so, she sprang up with flashing eyes, and her hand pressed upon her breast, and said, "Oh, if I loved you before, now I love you more, if that is possible. Who could suffer thus horribly, and yet be faithful to the fallen and your oath? Oh, blessed be the day when first I looked upon your face. Oh, my husband, most true of men. But they who could do this, what of them? Still it is done with, and I will nurse you back to health. Surely it is done with, or they had not suffered me to come to you." "Alas, Artemy, I must tell all. It is not done with." And with faltering voice I went on with the tale. Yes, and since I must, I told her of what purpose she had been brought here. She listened without a word, though her lips turned pale. "Truly," she said when I had done, "these Teules far surpass the pabas of our people, for if the priests torture and sacrifice, it is to the gods, and not for the gold and secret hate. Now, husband, what is your counsel? Surely you have some counsel?" "I have none that I dare offer, wife," I groaned. "You are as timid as a girl who will not utter the love she burns to tell," Artemy answered, with a proud and bitter laugh. "Well, I will speak for you. It is in your mind that we must die tonight." "It is," I said. "Death now, or shame and agony tomorrow, and then death at last. That is our choice. Since God will not protect us, we must protect ourselves, if we can find the means." "God? There is no God. At times I have doubted the gods of my people and turned to yours. Now I renounce and reject him. If there were a God of mercy, such as you cling to, could he suffer that such things be? You are my God, husband. To you and for you I pray, and you alone. Let us have done now with pleading to those who are not, or who, if they live, are deaf to our cries and blind to our misery, and befriend ourselves. Look, yonder lies rope. That window has bars. Very soon we can be beyond the sun and the cruelty of Teules, or sound asleep. But there is time yet. Let us talk a while. They will scarcely begin their torments before dawn, and ere dawn we shall be far." So we talked as well as my sufferings would allow. We talked of how we had first met, of how Otomy had been vowed to me as the wife of Tezcat, soul of the world, of that day when we had lain side by side upon the stone of sacrifice, of our true marriage thereafter, of the siege of Tenochtitlan and the death of our firstborn. Thus we talked till midnight was 2 hours gone. Then there came silence. "Husband," said Otomy at last, in a hushed and solemn voice, "you are worn with suffering, and I am weary. It is time to do that which must be done. Oh, sad is our fate, but at least rest is before us. I thank you, husband, for your gentleness. I thank you more for your faithfulness to my house and people. Shall I make ready for the last journey?" "Make ready," I answered. Then she rose and soon was busy with the ropes. At length all was prepared, and the moment of death was at hand. "You must aid me, Otomy," I said. I cannot walk by myself." She came and lifted me with her strong and tender arms, till I stood upon a stool beneath the window bars. There she placed the rope about my throat. Then taking her stand by me, she fitted the second rope about her own. Now we kissed in solemn silence, for there was nothing more to say. Yet Otomy said something, asking, "Of whom do you think in this moment, husband? Of me and of my dead child? Or of that lady who lives far across the sea? Nay, I will not ask. I have been happy in my love. It is enough. Now love and life must end together, and it is well for me, but for you I grieve. Say, shall I thrust away the stool?" "Yes, Otomy, since there is no hope but death. I cannot break my faith with Guatemoc, nor can I live to see you shamed and tortured." "Then kiss me first, and for the last time." We kissed again, and then, as she was in the very act of pushing the stool from beneath us, the door opened and shut, and a veiled woman stood before us, bearing a torch in one hand and a bundle in another. She looked, and seeing us and our dreadful purpose, ran to us. "What do you?" she cried, and I knew the voice for that of Marina. "Are you then mad, Teule?" "Who is this who knows you so well, husband, and will not even suffer that we die in peace?" asked Otomy. "I am Marina," answered the veiled woman, "and I have come to save you if I can." End of chapter 29. Recording by Patrick 79. Chapter 30 of Montezuma's Daughter by H. Rider Haggard. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Patrick 79. Chapter 30. The Escape. Now Otomy put the rope off her neck, and descending from the stool, stood before Marina. "You are Marina," she said coldly and proudly, "and you come to save us, you who have brought ruin on the land that bore you, and have given thousands of her children to death and shame and torment. Now, if I had my way, I would have none of your salvation. Nay, I would rather save myself, as I was about to do." Thus Otomie spoke, and never had she looked more royal than in this moment, when she risked her last chance of life that she might pour out her scorn upon whom she deemed a traitress. No, one who was a traitress. For had it not been for Marina's wit and aid, Cortes would never have conquered Anahuac. I trembled as I heard her angry words, for all I suffered notwithstanding, life still seemed sweet to me, who 10 seconds ago had stood upon the verge of death. Surely Marina would depart and leave us to our doom. But it was not so. Indeed, she shrank and trembled before Otomie's contempt. They were a strange contrast in their different loveliness, as they stood face to face in the torture den, and it was strange also to see the spirit of the lady of royal blood, threatened as she was with a shameful death, or still more shameful life, triumph over the Indian girl whom today fortune had set as far above her as the stars. "Say, royal lady," asked Marina in her gentle voice, "for what cause did you, if tales are true, lie by the side of yonder white man upon the stone of sacrifice?" "Because I love him, Marina. And for this same cause have I, Marina, laid my honour upon a different altar. For this same cause I have striven against the children of my people, because I love another such as he. It is for love of Cortes that I have aided Cortes. Therefore despise me not. But let your love plead for mine, seeing that to us women love is all. I have sinned, I know, but doubtless in its season my sin shall find its fitting punishment." "It had need be sharp," answered Otomie. "My love has harmed none. See before you but one grain of the countless harvest of your own. In yonder chair, Guatemoc, your king, was this day tortured by your master Cortes, who swore to treat him with all honour. By his side sat Teule, my husband and your friend. Him Cortes gave over to his private enemy, de Garcia, whom you name Sarceda. See how he has left him. Nay, do not shudder, gentle lady. Look now at his wounds. Consider to what a pass we are driven when you find us about to die thus like dogs. He, my husband, that he may not live to see me handled as he has been, and I with him, because a princess of the Otomie and of Montezuma's blood cannot submit to such a shame, while death has one door through which to creep. It is but a single grain of your harvest, outcast and traitress, the harvest of misery and death that is stored yonder in the ruins of Tenochtitlan. Had I my will, I tell you that I had sooner die a score of times than take help from a hand so stained with the blood of my people and yours. Oh, cease, lady, cease," groaned Marina, covering her eyes with her hand as though the sight of Otomie were dreadful to her. "What is done is done. Do not add to my remorse. What did you say? That you, the Lady Otomie, were brought here to be tortured? Even so, and before my husband's eyes. Why should Montezuma's daughter and the princess of the Otomie escape the fate of the emperor of the Aztecs? If her womanhood does not protect her, has she anything to hope of her lost rank?" "Cortes knows nothing of this, I swear it," said Marina. "To the rest he is driven by the clamour of the soldiers, who taunt him with stealing treasure that he has never found. But of this last wickedness he is innocent." "Then let him ask his tool Sarceda of it." "As for Sarceda, I promise you, princess, that if I can I will avenge this threat upon him. But time is short. I come here with the knowledge of Cortes, to see if I can win the secret of the treasure from the Teule, your husband, and for my friendship's sake I am about to betray my trust and help him and you to fly. Do you refuse my aid?" Artemis said nothing, but I spoke for the first time. "Nay, Marina, I have no love for this thief's fate if I can escape it. But how is it to be done?" "The chance is poor enough, Teule, but I bethought me that once out of this prison you might slip away disguised. Few will be stirring at dawn, and of them the most will not be keen to notice men or things. See, I have brought you a dress of a Spanish soldier. Your skin is dark, and in the half-light you might pass as one. And for the princess your wife I have brought another dress. Indeed, I am ashamed to offer it, but it is the only one that will not be noted at this hour. Also, Teule, I bring you a sword, that which was taken from you, though I think that once it had another owner." Now while she spoke, Marina undid her bundle, and there in it were the dresses and the sword, the same that I had taken from the Spaniard Diaz in the massacre of the Noche Triste. First she drew out the woman's robe and handed it to Otomie, and I saw that it was such a robe as among the Indians is worn by the women who follow camps, a robe with red and yellow in it. Otomie saw it also and drew back. "Surely, girl, you have bought a garment of your own in error," she said quietly, but in such a fashion as showed more of the savage heart that is native to her race than she often suffered to be seen. "At the least I cannot wear such a robe." "It seems that I must bear too much," answered Marina, growing wroth at last, and striving to keep back the tears that started her eyes. "I will away and leave you," and she began to roll up her bundle. "Forgive her, Marina," I said hastily, for the desire to escape grew on me every minute. "Sorrow has set an edge upon her tongue." Then turning to Otomie, I added, "I pray you be more gentle, wife, for my sake if not for your own. Marina is our only hope." "Would that she had left us to die in peace, husband. Well, so be it. For your sake I will put on these garbs of a drab. But how shall we escape out of this place and the camp? Will the door be opened to us, and the guards removed? And if we pass them, can you walk, husband?" "The doors will not be opened, lady," said Marina, "for those wait without who will see that they are locked when I have passed them. But there will be nothing to fear from the guard. Trust to me for it. See, the bars of this window are but wood. That sword will soon sever them, and if you are seen, you must play the part of a drunken soldier being guided to these quarters by this woman. For the rest I know nothing, save that I run great risk for your sake, since if it is discovered that I have aided you, then I shall find it hard to soften the rage of Cortes, who, the war being won," and she sighed, "does not need me now so much as once he did." "I can make shift to hop to my right foot," I said, "and for the rest we must trust to fortune. It can give us no worse gifts than those we have already had." "So be it, Teule, and now farewell, for I dare stay no longer. I can do nothing more. May your good star shine on you and lead you hence in safety. And Teule, if we ever meet again, I pray you think of me kindly, for there are many in the world who will do otherwise in the days to come." "Farewell, Marina," I said, and she was gone. We heard the doors close behind her and the distant voices of those who bore her litter. Then all was silence. Otomie listened at the window for a while, but the guards seemed to be gone, where or why I do not know to this hour, and the only sound was that of a distant revelry from the camp. "And now to work," I said to Otomie. "As you wish, husband, but I fear it will be profitless. I do not trust that woman. Faithless in all, without doubt she betrays us. Still, at the worst you have the sword and can use it." "It matters little," I answered. "Our plight cannot be worse than it is now. Life has no greater evils than torment and death, and they are with us already." Then I sat upon the stool, and my arms being left sound and strong, I hacked with the sharp sword at the wooden bars of the window, severing them one by one till there was space enough for us to creep through. This being done, and no one having appeared to disturb us, Otomie clad me in the clothes of the Spanish soldier which Marina had brought, for I could not dress myself. What I suffered in the donning of these garments, and more especially in the pulling of the long boot on my burnt foot, can never be told, but more than once I stopped, pondering whether it would not be better to die rather than to endure such agonies. But at last it was done, and Otomie put on the red and yellow robe, a garb of shame such as many honest Indian women would die sooner than be seen in, and I think that as she did this her agony was greater than mine, though of another sort, for to her proud heart that dress was a very shirt of Nessus. Presently she was clad, and minced before me with savage mockery, saying, "Oh, prithee, soldier, do I look my part?" "Oh, peace to such fooling," I answered. "Our lives are at stake. What does it matter how we disguise ourselves?" "It matters much, husband, but how can you understand? You are a man and a foreigner. Now I will clamber through the window, and you must follow me if you can. If not, I will return to you, and we will end this masquerade." Then she passed through the hole swiftly, for Otomie was agile and strong as an ocelot, and mounting the stool I made shift to follow her as well as my hurts would allow. In the end I was able to throw myself upon the sill of the window, and there I was stretched out like a dead cat till she drew me across it, and I fell with her to the ground on the further side, and lay groaning. She lifted me to my feet, or rather to my foot, for I could use but one of them, and we stared round us. No one was to be seen, and the sound of revelry had died away, for the crest of Popo was already red with the sunlight, and the dawn grew in the valley. "Where to?" I said. Now Otomie had been allowed to walk in the camp with her sister, the wife of Guatemoc, and other Aztec ladies, and she had this gift in common with most Indians, that where she had once passed, there she could pass again, even in the darkest night. "To the south gate," she whispered. "Perhaps it is unguarded now that the war is done, and at least I know the road thither." So we started, I leaning on her shoulder and hopping on my right foot, and thus very painfully we traversed some 300 yards, meeting nobody. But now our good luck failed us, for passing round the corner of some buildings, we came face to face with 3 soldiers returning to their huts from a midnight revel, and with them some native servants. "Whom have we here?" said the first of these. "Your name, comrade?" "Good night, brother, good night," I answered in Spanish, speaking with a thick voice of drunkenness. "Good morning, you mean," he said, for the dawn was breaking. "Your name? I don't know your face, though it seems that you have been in the wars," and he laughed. "You mustn't ask a comrade his name," I said solemnly, and swinging to and fro. "The captain might send for me, and he's a temperate man. Your arm, girl. It is time to go to sleep. Oh, the sun sets." They laughed, but one of them addressed Otomie, saying, "Leave the sop, my pretty, and come and walk with us," and he caught her by the arm, but she turned on him with so fierce a look that he let her go again, astonished, and we staggered on till the corner of another house hid us from their view. Here I sank to the ground, overcome with pain, for while the soldiers were in sight, I was obliged to use my wounded foot, lest they should suspect. But Otomie pulled me up, saying, "Alas, beloved, we must pass on or perish." I rose groaning, and by what efforts I reached the south gate I cannot describe, though I thought that I must die before I came there. But at last it was there before us, and as chance would have it, the Spanish guard were asleep in the gatehouse. 3 Tlascalans only were crouched over a little fire, their zaraps or blankets about their heads, for the dawn was chilly. "Open the gates, dogs," I said in a proud voice. Seeing a Spanish soldier, one of them rose to obey, then paused and said, "Why, and by whose orders?" I could not see the man's face because of the blanket, but his voice sounded familiar to me, and I grew afraid. Still I must speak. "Why? Because I am drunk and wish to lie without till I grow sober. By whose orders? By mine. I am an officer of the day, and if you disobey, I'll have you flogged till you never ask another question." "Shall I call the Teules within?" said the man sulkily to his companions. "No," they answered. "The Lord Sarkeda is weary and gave orders that he should not be wakened without good cause. Keep them in or let them through as you will, but do not waken him." I trembled in every limb. De Garcia was in the guardhouse. What if he awoke? What if he came out and saw me? More, now I guessed whose voice it was that I knew again. It was that one of his Tlascalans who had aided him in tormenting me. What if he should see my face? He could scarcely fail to know that on which he had left his mark so recently. I was dumb with fear and could say nothing, and had it not been for the wit of Otomie, there my story would have ended. But now she played her part and played it well, plying the man with the coarse raillery of the camp, till at length she put him in good humour, and he opened the gate, bidding her begone and me with her. Already had we passed the gate when a sudden faintness seized me, and I stumbled and fell, rolling over onto my back as I touched the earth. "Up, friend, up," said Otomie with a harsh laugh. "If you must sleep, wait till you find some friendly bush," and she dragged at me to lift me. The Tlascalans, still laughing, came forward to help her, and between them I gained my feet again. But as I rose, my cap, which fitted me but ill, fell off. He picked it up and gave it to me, and our eyes met, my face being somewhat in the shadows. Next instant I was hobbling on, but looking back, I saw the Tlascalan staring after us with a puzzled air, like that of a man who is not sure of the witness of his senses. "He knows me," I said to Otomie, "and presently when he has found his wits he will follow us." "On, on," answered Otomie. "Round yonder corner are aloe bushes where we may hide. I am spent, I can no more," and again I began to fall. Then Otomie caught me as I fell, and of a sudden she put out her strength, and lifting me from the ground as a mother lifts her child, staggered forward holding me to her breast. For 50 paces or more she carried me thus, love and despair giving her strength, till at last we reached the edge of the aloe plants, and there we sank together to the earth. I cast my eyes back over the path which we had travelled. Round the corner came the Tlascalan, a spiked club in his hand, seeking us to solve his doubts. "It is finished," I gasped. "The man comes." For answer Otomie drew my sword from its scabbard and hid it in the grass. "Now feign sleep," she said. "It is our last chance." I cast my arm over my face and pretended to be asleep. Presently I heard the sound of a man passing through the bushes, and the Tlascalan stood over me. "What would you?" asked Otomie. "Can you not see that he sleep? Let him sleep." "I must look at his face first, woman," he answered, dragging aside my arm. "By the gods, I thought so. This is that Teule that we dealt with yesterday, and who escapes." "You are mad," she said laughing. "He has escaped from nowhere, save from a brawl and a drinking bout." "You lie, woman. If you do not lie, you know nothing. This man has the secret of Montezuma's treasure and is worth a king's ransom," and he lifted his club. "And yet you wish to slay him. Well, I know nothing of him. Take him back whence he came. He is but a drunken sot, and I shall be well rid of him." "Well said. It would be foolish to kill him, but by bearing him alive to the Lord Sarkeda I shall win honour and reward. Come you, help me." "Help yourself," she answered sullenly. "But first search his pouch. There may be some trifle there we can divide." "Oh, well said again," he answered, and kneeling down he bent over me and began to fumble at the fastenings of the pouch. Otomie was behind him. I saw her face change, and a terrible light came into her eyes, such a light as shines in the eyes of a priest at sacrifice. Quick as thought she drew the sword from the grass and smote with all her strength upon the man's bent back. Down he fell, making no sound, and she also fell beside him. In a moment she was on her feet again, staring at him wildly, the naked sword in her hand. "Up," she said, "before the others come to seek him." "Nay, you must." Now again we were struggling forward through the bushes, my mind filled with a great wonder that grew slowly to a whirling nothingness. For a while it seemed to me as though I were lost in an evil dream, and walking on red-hot irons in my dream. Then came a vision of armed men with lifted spears, and of Otomie running towards them with outstretched arms. I knew no more. End of chapter 30. Recording by Patrick 79. Chapter 31 of Montezuma's Daughter by H. Rider Haggard. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Patrick 79. Chapter 31. Otomie pleads with her people. When I awoke it was to find myself in a cave, where the light shone very dimly. Otomy leant over me, and not far away a man was cooking a pot over a fire made of dry aloe leaves. "Where am I, and what has happened?" I asked. "Oh, you are safe, beloved," she answered, "at least for a while. When you have eaten I will tell you more." She brought me broth and food, and I ate eagerly, and when I was satisfied she spoke. "You remember how the Tlascalan followed us and how I was rid of him?" "I remember, Otomy, though how you found the strength to kill him I do not understand." "Love and despair gave it to me, and I pray that I may never have such another need. Do not speak of it, husband, for this is more horrible to me than all that has been before. One thing comforts me, however. I did not kill him. The sword twisted in my hand, and I believe that he was but stunned. Then we fled a little way, and looking back I saw that two other Tlascalans, companions of the senseless man, were following us and him. Presently they came up to where he lay and stared at him. Then they stared at our tracks, running hard, and very soon they must have caught us, for now you could scarcely stir. Your mind was gone, and I had no more strength to carry you. Still we stumbled on till presently, when the pursuers were within 50 paces of us, I saw armed men, 8 of them, rushing at us from the bushes. They were of my own people, the Otomies, soldiers that have served under you, who watched the Spanish camp, and seeing a Spaniard alone, they came to slay him. They very nearly did so indeed, for at first I was so breathless that I could scarcely speak, but at last, in a few words, I made shift to declare my name and rank, and your sad plight. By now the two Tlascalans were upon us, and I called to the men of the Otomy to protect us. And falling upon the Tlascalans, before they knew that enemies were there, they killed one of them and took the other prisoner. Then they made a litter, and placing you on it, bore you without rest 20 leagues into the mountains, till they reached this secret hiding place. And here you have lain for 3 days and nights. Oh, the Teules have searched for you far and wide, but they have searched in vain. Only yesterday 2 of them with 10 Tlascalans passed within 100 paces of this cave, and I had much ado to prevent our people from attacking them. Now they are gone whence they came, and I think that we are safe for a time. Soon you will be better, and we can go hence." "Where can we go to, Otomy? We are birds without a nest." "We must seek shelter in the City of Pines, or fly across the water. There is no other choice, husband." "We cannot try the sea, Otomy, for all the ships that come here are Spanish, and I do not know how they will greet us in the City of Pines, now that our cause is lost, and with it so many thousands of their warriors." "We must take the risk, husband. There are still true hearts in Anahuac, who will still stand by us in our sorrow and their own. At the least, we have escaped from greater dangers. Now, let me dress your wounds and rest a while." So for 3 more days I lay in the cave of the mountains, and Otomy tended me, and at the end of that time my state was such that I could travel in a litter, though for some weeks I was unable to set foot to the ground. On the 4th day we started by night, and I was carried on men's shoulders till at length we passed up the gorge that leads to the City of Pines. Here we were stopped by sentries to whom Otomy told our tale, bidding some of them go forward and repeat it to the captains of the city. We followed the messengers slowly, for my bearers were weary, and came to the gates of the beautiful town, just as the red rays of sunset struck upon the snowy pinnacle of Jacques that towers behind it, turning her cap of smoke to a sullen red, like that of molten iron. The news of our coming had spread about, and here and there knots of people were gathered to watch us pass. For the most part they stood silent, but now and again some woman whose husband or son had perished in the siege would hiss a curse at us. Alas, how different was our state this day to what it had been when not a year before we entered the City of Pines for the first time. Then we were escorted by an army 10,000 strong. Then musicians had sung before us, and our path was strewn with flowers. And now we came, two fugitives from the vengeance of the Teules. I borne in a litter by 4 tired soldiers, while Otomie, the princess of this people, still clad in her wanton's robe, at which the women mocked, for she had been able to come by no other, tramped at my side, since there were none to carry her, and the inhabitants of the place cursed us as the authors of their woes. Nor did we know if they would stop at words. At length we crossed the square beneath the shadow of the teocalli, and reached the ancient and sculptured palace as the light failed, and the smoke on Jacques, the holy hill, began to glow with fire in its heart. Here a small preparation had been made to receive us, and that night we supped by the light of a torch upon tortillas or meal cakes and water, like the humblest in the land. Then we crept to our rest, and as I lay awake because of the pain of my hurts, I heard Otomie, who thought that I slept, break into low sobbing at my side. Her proud spirit was humbled at last, and she, whom I had never known to weep except once, when our firstborn died in the siege, wept bitterly. "Why do you sorrow thus, Otomie?" I asked at length. "I did not know that you were awake, husband," she sobbed in answer, "or I would have checked my grief. Husband, I sorrow over all that has befallen us and my people. Also, though these are but little things, because you were brought so low and treated as a man of no estate, and of the cold comfort that we find here." "Oh, you have cause, wife," I answered. "Say, what will these Otomies do with us? Kill us, or give us up to the Teules?" "I do not know. Tomorrow we shall learn, but for my part I will not be surrendered living." "Nor I, wife. Death is better than the tender mercies of Cortes and his minister de Garcia. Is there any hope?" "Yes, there is hope, beloved. Now the Otomie are cast down, and they remember that we led the flower of their land to death. But they are brave and generous at heart, and if I can touch them there, all may be well. Weariness, pain, and memory make us weak, who should be full of courage, having escaped so many ills. Oh, sleep, my husband, and leave me to think. All shall yet go well, for even misfortune has an end." So I slept, and woke up in the morning somewhat refreshed and with a happier mind, for who is there that is not bolder when the light shines on him and he is renewed by rest? When I opened my eyes the sun was already high, but Otomie had risen with the dawn, and she had not been idle during those 3 hours. For one thing, she had contrived to obtain food and fresh raiment, more befitting to our rank than the rags in which we were clothed. Also, she had brought together certain men of condition who were friendly and loyal to her in misfortune, and these she sent about the city, letting it be known that she would address the people at midday from the steps of the palace. For as Otomy knew well, the heartstring of a crowd are touched more easily than those of cold and ancient counsellors. "Will they come to listen?" I asked. "Oh, have no fear," she answered. "The desire to look upon us who have survived the siege and to know the truth of what has happened will bring them. Moreover, some will be there seeking vengeance on us." Oh, Otomy was right, for as the morning drew on towards midday, I saw the dwellers of the City of Pines gathering in their thousands, till the space between the steps of the palace and the face of the pyramid was black with them. Now Otomy combed her curling hair and placed flowers in it, and set a gleaming feather cloak about her shoulders, so that it hung down over her white robes, and on her breast that splendid necklace of emeralds which Guatemoc had given to me in the treasure chamber, and which she had preserved safely through all our evil fortune, and a golden girdle about her waist. In her hand also she took a little sceptre of ebony tipped with gold, that was in the palace, with other ornaments and emblems of rank. And thus attired, though she was worn with travel and suffering, and grief had dimmed her beauty for a while, she seemed the queenliest woman that my eyes have seen. Next she caused me to be laid upon a rude litter, and when the hour of noon was come, she commanded those soldiers who had borne me across the mountains to carry me by her side. Thus we issued from the wide doorway of the palace, and took our stand upon the platform at the head of the steps. As we came, a great cry rose from the thousands of people, a fierce cry like that of wild beasts howling for their prey. Higher and higher it rose, a sound to strike terror into the bravest heart, and by degrees I caught its purport. "Kill them," said the cry. "Give the liars to the Teules." Otomy stepped forward to the edge of the platform, and lifting the ebony sceptre, she stood silent, the sunlight beating on her lovely face and form. But the multitude screamed 1,000 taunts and threats at us, and still the tumult grew. Once they rushed towards her as though to tear her to pieces, but fell back at the last stair, as a wave falls from a rock. And once a spear was thrown that passed between her neck and her shoulder. Now the soldiers who carried me, making certain that our death was at hand, and having no wish to share it, set my litter down upon the stones and slipped back into the palace. But all this while Otomy never so much as moved. No, not even when the spear hissed past her. She stood before them stately and scornful, a very queen among women. And little by little the majesty of her presence and the greatness of her courage hushed them to silence. When there was quiet at length, she spoke in a clear voice that carried far. "Am I among my own people of the Otomy?" she asked bitterly. "Or have we lost our path and wandered perchance among some savage Tlascalan tribe? Listen, people of the Otomy. I have but one voice, and none can reason with the multitude. Choose you a tongue to speak for you, and let him set out the desire of your hearts." Now the tumult began again, for some shouted one name and some another, but in the end a priest and noble named Mashla stepped forward. a man of great power among the Otomi, who above all had favoured an alliance with the Spaniards and opposed the sending of an army to aid Guatemoc in the defence of Tenochtitlan. Nor did he come alone, for with him were 4 chiefs, whom by their dress I knew to be Tlascalans and envoys from Cortes. Then my heart sank, for it was not difficult to guess the object of their coming. "Speak on, Mashtla," said Otomar, "for we must hear what there is for us to answer. And you, people of Otomi, I pray you keep silence, that you may judge between us when there is an end of talking." Now a great silence fell upon the multitude, who pressed together like sheep in a pen, and strained their ears to catch the words of Mashtla. "My speech with you, princess, and the Teule your husband, shall be short and sharp," he began roughly. "A while hence you came hither to seek an army to aid Cuitlahua, emperor of the Aztecs, in this struggle with the Teules, the sons of Quetzal. That army was given you, against the wishes of many of us, for you won over the council by the honey of your words, and we who urged caution, or even an alliance with the white men, the children of God, were overruled. You went hence, and 20,000 men, the flower of our people, followed you to Tenochtitlan. Where are they now? I will tell you. Some 200 of them have crept back home. The rest fly to and fro through the air in the gizzards of the zaphilots, or crouch in the earth in the bellies of jackals. Death has them all, and you led them to their deaths. Is it then much that we should seek the lives of you too in payment for those 20,000 of our sons, husbands, and our fathers? But we do not even ask this. Here beside me stand ambassadors from Malinche, the captains of the Teules, who reached our city but an hour ago. This is the demand that they bring from Malinche, and in his own words: deliver back to me Otomi, the daughter of Montezuma, and the renegade her paramour, who is known as Teule, who has fled from the justice due to his crimes, and it shall be well with you, people of the Otomi. Hide them, or refuse to deliver them, and the fate of the City of Pines shall be the fate of Tenochtitlan, Queen of the Valley. Choose then between my love and my wrath. People of the Otomi, if you obey, the past shall be forgiven, and my yoke will be light upon you. If you refuse, your city shall be stamped flat, and your very name wiped from the records of the world. Say, messengers of Malinche, are not these the words of Malinche?" "They are the very words, Mashtla," said the spokesman of the embassy. Now again there was a tumult among the people, and voices cried, "Give them up, give them to Malinche as a peace offering." Otomi stood forward to speak, and it died away, for all desired to hear her words. Then she spoke. "It seems, people of the Otomi, that I am on trial before my own vassals, and my husband with me. Well, I will plead our cause as well as a woman may, and having the power, you shall judge between us and Mashtla and his allies, Malinche and the Tlascalans. What is our offence? It is that we came hither by the command of Cuitlahua to seek your aid in his war with the Teules. What did I tell you then? I told you that if the people of Anahuac would not stand together against the white men, they must be broken one by one like sticks of an unbound faggot, and cast into the flames. Did I speak lies? Nay, I spoke truth, for through the treason of her tribes, and chiefly through the treason of the Tlascalans, Anahuac is fallen, and Tenochtitlan is a ruin, sown with dead, like a field with corn. It is true, cried a voice. Yes, people of the Otomi, it is true. But I say that had all the warriors of the nations of Anahuac played the part that your sons played, the tale had run otherwise. They are dead, and because of their death you would deliver us to our foes and yours. But I for one do not mourn them, though among their number are many of my kin. Nay, be not wroth, but listen. It is better that they should lie dead in honour, having earned for themselves a wreath of fame and an immortal dwelling in the houses of the sun, than that they should live to be slaves, which it seems is your desire, people of the Otomi. There is no false word in what I said to you. Now the sticks that Malinche has used to beat out his brains of Guatemoc shall be broken and burnt to cook the pot of the Teules. Already these false children are his slaves. Have you not heard his command, that the tribes, his allies, shall labour in the quarries and the streets till the glorious city which he has burned rises afresh from the face of the waters? Will you not hasten to take your share in the work, people of the Otomi, the work that knows no rest and no reward except the lash of the overseer and the curse of the Teule? Surely you will hasten, people of the mountains. Your hands are shaped to the spade and the trowel, not to the bow and the spear, and it will be sweeter to toil to do the will and swell the wealth of Malinche in the sun of the valley or the shadow of the mine, than to bide here free upon the hills, where as yet no foe has set his foot. Again she paused, and a murmur of doubt and unrest went through the thousands who listened. Mashla stepped forward and would have spoken, but the people shouted him down, crying, "Otomi, Otomi, let us hear the words of Otomi." "I thank you, my people," she said, "for I have still much to tell you. Our crime is then that we drew an army after us to fight against the Teules. And how did we draw this army? Did I command you to muster your array? Nay, I set out my case and I said, 'Now choose.' You chose, and of your own free will you dispatched these glorious companies that now are dead. My crime is therefore that you chose wrongly, as you say, but as I still hold, most rightly. And because of this crime I and my husband are to be driven as a peace offering to the Teules. Listen, let me tell you something of those wars in which we have fought, before you give us to the Teules and our mouths are silent forever. Where shall I begin? I know not. Stay, I bore a child. Had he lived, he would have been your prince today. That child I saw starve to death before my own eyes, inch by inch and day by day. I saw him starve. But it is nothing. Who am I that I should complain because I have lost my son, when so many of your sons are dead and their blood is required at my hands? Listen again." And she went on to tell in burning words of the horrors of the siege, of the cruelties of the Spaniards and of the bravery of the men of the Otomy who I had commanded. For a full hour she spoke thus, while all that vast audience hung upon her words. Also she told of the part that I played in the struggle, and of the deeds which I had done. And now and again some soldier in the crowd who served under me, and who had escaped the famine and the massacre, cried out, "It is true! We saw it with our own eyes." And so, she said, at last it was finished. At last Tenochtitlan was a ruin, and my cousin and my king, the glorious Guatemoc, lay a prisoner in the hands of Malinche, and with him my husband Teule, my sister, I myself, and many another. Malinche swore that he would treat Guatemoc and his following with all honour. Do you know how he treated him? Within a few days Guatemoc our king was seated in the chair of torment, while slaves burned him with hot irons to cause him to declare the hiding place of the treasure of Montezuma. Aye, you may well cry shame upon him. You shall cry yet more loudly before I have done. For know that Guatemoc did not suffer alone. One lies there who suffered with him and spoke no word. And I also, your princess, was doomed to torment. We escaped when death was at our door, for I told my husband that the people of the Otomy had true hearts, and would shelter us in our sorrow, and for his sake I, Otomy, disguised myself in the robe of a wanton, and fled with him hither. Could I have known what I should live to see and hear? Would I have dreamed that you would receive me thus? I had died 100 deaths before I came to stand and plead for pity at your hands. O my people, I beseech of you, make no terms with the false Teule, but remain bold and free. Your necks are not fitted to the yoke of the slave. Your sons and daughter of too high a blood to serve the foreigner in his needs and pleasures. Defy Malinche. Some of our race are dead, but many thousands remain. Here in your mountain nest you can beat back every Teule in Anahuac, as in bygone years the false Tlascalans beat back the Aztecs. Then the Tlascalans were free. Now they are a part of the race of serfs. Say, will you share their serfdom? My people, think not that I plead for myself, or even for the husband who is more dear to me than aught save honour. Do you indeed dream that we will suffer you to hand us living to these dogs of Tlascalans, whom Malinche insults you by sending as his messengers? Look!" And she walked to where the spear that had been hurled at her lay upon the pavement, and lifted it. "Here is a means of death that some friend has sent us, and if you will not listen to my pleading, you shall see it used before your eyes. Then, if you will, you may send our bodies to Malinche as a peace offering. But for your own sakes I plead with you. Defy Malinche, and if you must die at last, die as free men and not as the slaves of the Teule. Behold now his tender mercies, and see the lot that shall be yours if you take another counsel, the counsel of Maxtla." And coming to the litter in which I lay, swiftly Otomy rent my robes from me, leaving me almost naked to the waist, and unwound the bandages from my wounded limb, then lifted me up so that I rested upon my sound foot. "Look, she cried in a piercing voice, and pointing to the scars and unhealed wounds upon my face and leg. "Look on the work of the Teule and the Tlascalan. See how the foe is dealt with who surrenders to them. Yield if you will, desert us if you will, but I say that then your own bodies shall be marked in a like fashion, till not an ounce of gold is left that can minister to the greed of the Teule, or a man or a maiden who can labour to satisfy his indolence." Then she ceased, and letting me sink gently to the ground, for I could not stand alone, she stood over me, the spear in her hand, as though waiting to plunge it to my heart should the people still demand our surrender to the messengers of Cortes. For one instant there was silence. Then of a sudden the clamour and the tumult broke out again 10 times more furiously than at first. But it was no longer aimed at us. Otomy had conquered. Her noble words, her beauty, the tale of our sorrows and the sight of my torments had done their work, and the heart of the people was filled with fury against the Teules who had destroyed their army, and the Tlascalans that had aided them. Never did the wit and eloquence of a woman cause a swifter change. They screamed and tore their robes and shook their weapons in the air. Mashla strove to speak, but they pulled him down, and presently he was flying for his life. Then they turned upon the Tlascalan envoys and beat them with sticks, crying, "This is our answer to Malinche. Run, ye dogs, and take it," till they were driven from the town. Now at length the turmoil ceased, and some of the great chiefs came forward, and kissing the hand of Otomy, said, "Princess, we your children will guard you to the death, for you have put another heart into us. You are right. It is better to die free than to live as slaves." "See, my husband," said Otomy, "I was not mistaken when I told you that my people were loyal and true. But now we must make ready for war, for they have gone too far to turn back, and when this tiding comes to the ears of Malinche, he will be like a puma robbed of her young. Now let us rest. I am very weary." "Otomy," I answered, "there has lived no greater woman than you upon this earth." "I cannot tell, husband," she said smiling. "If I have won your praise and safety, that is enough for me." End of chapter 31. Recording by Patrick 79. Chapter 32 of Montezuma's Daughter by H. Rider Haggard. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Patrick 79. Chapter 32. The End of Guatemoc. Now for a while we dwelt in quiet at the City of Pines, and by slow degrees and with much suffering I recovered from the wounds that the cruel hand of de Garcia had inflicted upon me. But we knew that this peace could not last, and the people of the Otomy knew it also, for had they not scoured the envoys of Malinche out of the gates of their city? Many of them were now sorry that this had been done, but it was done, and they must reap as they had sown. So they made ready for war, and Otomy was the president of their councils, in which I shared. At length came news of a force of 50 Spaniards with 5,000 Tlascalan allies were advancing on the city to destroy us. Then I took the command of the tribesmen of the Otomie. There were 10,000 or more of them, all well armed after their own fashion, and advanced out of the city till I was 2/3 of the way down the gorge which leads to it. But I did not bring all my army down this gorge, since there was no room for them to fight there, and I had another plan. I sent some 7,000 men round the mountains, of which the secret paths were well known to them, bidding them climb to the crest of the precipices that bordered either side of the gorge, and there, at certain places where the cliff is sheer and more than 1,000 feet in height, to make a great provision of stones. The rest of my army, excepting 500 whom I kept with me, I armed with bows and throwing spears, and stationed them in ambush in convenient places where the sides of the cliff were broken, and in such a fashion that rocks from above could not be rolled on them. Then I sent trusty men as spies to warn me of the approach of Spaniards, and others whose mission it was to offer themselves to them as guides. Now I thought my plan good, and everything looked well, and yet it missed failure but by very little. For Mashla, our enemy, and the friends of the Spaniards, was in my camp. Indeed, I had brought him with me that I might watch him, and he had not been idle. For when the Spaniards were half a day's march from the mouth of the defile, one of those men whom I had told off to watch their advance came to me and made it known that Mashla had bribed him to go to the leader of the Spaniards and disclose to him the plan of the ambuscade. This man had taken the bribe and started on his errand of treachery, but his heart failed him, and returning, he told me all. Then I caused Mashla to be seized, and before nightfall he had paid the price of his wickedness. On the morning after his death, the Spanish array entered the pass. Halfway down I met them with my 500 men and engaged them, but suffered them to drive us back with some loss. As they followed, they grew bolder, and we fled faster, till at length we flew down the defile, followed by the Spanish horse. Now, some 3 furlongs from its mouth, that leads to the City of Pines, this pass turns and narrows, and here the cliffs are so sheer and high that a twilight reigns at the foot of them. Down the narrow way we ran in seeming rout, and after us came the Spaniards shouting of their saints and flushed with victory. But scarcely had we turned the corner when they sang another song, for those who were watching 1,000 feet above us gave the signal, and down from on high came a rain of stones and boulders that darkened the air and crushed them, crushing many of them. On they struggled, seeing a wider way in front where the cliff sloped, and perhaps half of them won through. But here the archers were waiting, and now in the place of stones arrows were hailed upon them, till at length, utterly bewildered and unable to strike a blow in their own defence, they turned to fly towards the open country. This finished the fight, for now we assailed their flank, and once more the rocks thundered on them from above, and the end of it was that those who remained of the Spaniards and their Indian allies were driven in utter rout back to the plain beyond the Pass of Pines. After this battle the Spaniards troubled us no more for many years, except by threats, and my name grew great among the people of the Otomie. One Spaniard I rescued from death, and afterwards I gave him his liberty. From him I inquired of the doings of de Garcia or Sarceda, and learned that he was still in the service of Cortes, but that Marina had been true to her word, and had brought disgrace upon him because he had threatened to put Otomy to the torture. Moreover, Cortes was angry with him because of our escape, the burden of which Marina had laid upon his shoulders, hinting that he had taken a bribe to suffer us to pass the gate. Of the 14 years of my life which followed the defeat of the Spaniards, I can speak briefly, for compared to the time that had gone before, they were years of quiet. In them children were born to me and Otomy, 3 sons, and these children were a great joy, for I loved them dearly, and they loved me. Indeed, except for the strain of their mother's blood, they were English boys and not Indian, for I christened them all, and taught them our English tongue and faith, and their mane and their eyes were more English than Indian, though their skins were dark. But I had no luck with these dear children of mine, any more than I have had with that which Lily bore me. 2 of them died, one from a fever that all my skill would not avail to cure, and another by a fall from a lofty cedar tree which he climbed searching for a kite's nest. Thus of the 3 of them, since I do not speak now of that infant my firstborn, who perished in the siege, there remained to me only the eldest and best beloved, of whom I must tell hereafter. For the rest, jointly with Otomy I was named cacique of the City of Pines at a great council that was held after I had destroyed the Spaniards and their allies, and as such we had wide, though not absolute power. By the exercise of this power, in the end I succeeded in abolishing the horrible rites of human sacrifice, though, because of this, a large number of the outlying tribes fell away from our rule, and the enmity of the priests was excited against me. The last sacrifice, except one only, the most terrible of them all, of which I will tell afterwards, that was ever celebrated on the teocalli in front of the palace, took place after the defeat of the Spaniards in the pass. When I had dwelt 3 years in the City of Pines, and 2 sons had been born to me, secret messengers arrived that were sent by the friends of Guatemoc, who had survived the torture and was still a prisoner in the hands of Cortes. From these messengers we learned that Cortes was about to start upon an expedition to the Gulf of Honduras, across the country that is now known as Yucatan, taking Guatemoc and other Aztec nobles with them, for he feared to leave them behind. He heard also that there was much murmuring among the conquered tribes of Anahuac because of the cruelties and extortions of the Spaniards, and many thought that the hour had come when a rising against them might be carried to a successful issue. This was the prayer of those who sent the envoys, that I should raise a force of Otomies and travel with it across the country to Yucatan, and there, with others who would be gathered, wait a favourable opportunity to throw myself upon the Spaniards when they were entangled in the forest and swamps, putting them to the sword and releasing Guatemoc. Such was the first purpose of the plot, though it had many others of which it is useless to speak, seeing that they came to nothing. When the message had been delivered, I shook my head sadly, for I could see no hope in such a scheme. But the chief of the messengers rose and led me aside, saying that he had a word for my ear. "Guatemoc sends these words," he said. "I hear that you, my brother, are free and safe with my cousin Otomy in the mountains of the Otomy. I, alas, linger in the prisons of the Teules like a crippled eagle in a cage. My brother, if it is in your power to help me, do so I conjure you by the memory of our ancient friendship and of all that we have suffered together. Then a time may come when I shall rule again in Anahuac, and you shall sit by my side. I heard, and my heart was stirred, for then, as to this hour, I love Guatemoc as a brother. Go back, I said, and find means to tell Guatemoc that if I can save him, I will, though I have small hopes that way. Still, let him look for me in the forests of Yucatan. Now when Otomie heard of this promise of mine, she was vexed, for she said that it was foolish and would only end in my losing my life. Still, having given it, she held with me that it must be carried out, and the end of it was that I raised 500 men, and with them set out upon my long and toilsome march, which I timed so as to meet Cortes in the passes of Yucatan. At the last moment Otomie wished to accompany me, but I forbade it, pointing out that she could leave neither her children nor her people, and we parted with bitter grief for the first time. Of all the hardships that I underwent, I will not write. For 2.5 months we struggled on across mountains and rivers, and through swamps and forests, till at last we reached a mighty deserted city, that is called Palenque by the Indians of those parts, which has been uninhabited for many generations. This city is the most marvellous place that I have seen in all my travels, though much of it is hidden in bush, for wherever the traveller wanders, there he finds vast palaces of marble, carven within and without, and sculptured teocallis, and the huge images of grinning gods. Often have I wondered what nation was strong enough to build such a capital, and who were the kings that dwelt in it. But these are secrets belonging to the past, and they cannot be answered till some learned man has found the key to the stone symbols and writings which the walls of the buildings are covered over. Now, in this city I hid my men, though it was no easy task to persuade them to take up their habitation among so many ghosts of the departed, not to speak of the noisome fevers and the wild beasts and snakes that haunted it, for I had information that the Spaniards would pass through the swamps that lies between the ruins and the river, and there I hoped to ambush them. But on the 8th day of my hiding, I learned from spies that Cortes had crossed the great river higher up, and was cutting his way through the forest, for of swamps he had passed more than enough. So I hurried also to the river, intending to cross it. But all that day and all that night it rained as it can rain nowhere else in the world that I have seen, till at last we waded on our road knee-deep in water, and when we came to the ford of the river it was to find a wide roaring flood, that no man could pass in anything less than a Yarmouth herring boat. So there on the bank we must stay in misery, suffering many ills from fever, lack of food and plenitude of water, till at length the stream ran down. 3 days and nights we waited there, and on the 4th morning I made shift to cross, losing 4 men by drowning in the passage. Once over, I hid my force in the bush and reeds, and crept forward with 6 men only to see if I could discover anything of the whereabouts of the Spaniards. Within an hour I struck the trail that had been cut through the forest, and followed it cautiously. Presently we came to a spot where the forest was thin, and here Cortes was camped, for there was heat left in the ashes of his fires, and among them lay the body of an Indian who had died from sickness. Not 50 yards from this camp stood a huge ceiba tree, a tree that has a habit of growth not unlike that of our English oak, though it is soft-wooded and white-barked, and will increase more in bulk in 20 years than any oak may in 100. Indeed, I never yet saw an oak tree so large as this ceiba of which I write, either in girth or on its spread off top, unless it be the Kirby oak, or the tree that is called the King of Scoto, which grows at Broome, that is the next parish to this of Ditchingham in Norfolk. On this ceiba tree many zephyrites or vultures were perched, and as we crept towards it, I saw what it was that they came to seek, for from the lowest branches of the ceiba 3 corpses hung in the breeze. "Here are the Spaniards' footprints," I said. "Let us look at them," and we passed beneath the shadow of the tree. As I came, a zaphilote alighted on the head of the body that hung nearest to me, and its weight, or the wafting of the fowl's wings, caused the dead man to turn round, so that he came face to face with me. I looked, and started back, then looked again, and sank to the earth groaning, for here was he whom I had come to seek and save, my friend, my brother Guatemoc, the last emperor of Anahuac. Here he hung in the dim and desolate forest, dead by the death of a thief, while the vultures shrieked upon his head. I sat bewildered and horror-stricken, and as I sat I remembered the proud sign of Aztec loyalty, a bird of prey clasping an adder in its claw. There before me was the last of the stock, and behold, a bird of prey gripped his hair in its talons, a fitting emblem indeed of the fall of Anahuac and the kings of Anahuac. I sprang to my feet with an oath, and lifting the bow I held, I sent an arrow through the vulture, and it fell to the earth fluttering and screaming. Then I bade those with me to cut down the corpses of Guatemoc and the Prince of Tacuba and another noble who hung with him, and hollow a deep grave beneath the tree. There I laid them, and there I left them to sleep for ever in its melancholy shadow, and thus for the last time I saw Guatemoc, my brother, whom I came so far to save, and found made already for burial by the Spaniard. Then I turned my face homeward, for now Anahuac had no king to rescue. But it chanced that before I went I caught a Tlascalan who could speak Spanish, and who had deserted from the army of Cortes because of the hardships that he had suffered in their toilsome march. This man was present at the murder of Guatemoc and his companions, and heard the emperor's last words. It seems that some knave had betrayed to Cortes that an attempt would be made to rescue the prince, and that thereon Cortes commanded that he should be hung. It seems also that Guatemoc met his death as he had met the misfortunes of his life, proudly and without fear. These were his last words. I did ill, Malinche, when I held my hand from taking my own life before I surrendered myself to you. Then my heart told me that all your promises were false, and it has not lied to me. I welcome my death, for I have lived to know shame and defeat and torture, and to see my people the slaves of the Teule. But still I say that God will reward you for this deed. Then they murdered him in the midst of a great silence. And so farewell to Guatemoc, the most brave, the best and the noblest Indian that ever breathed, and may the shadow of his tormenting and shameful end lie deep upon the fame of Cortes, for so long as the names of both of them are remembered among men. For 2 more months I journeyed homeward, and at length I reached the City of Pines. Well, though wearied, and having lost only 40 men by various misadventures of travel, to find Otomie in good health, and overjoyed to know me safe whom she thought never to see again. But when I told her what was the end of her cousin Guatemoc, she grieved bitterly, both for his sake and because the last hope of the Aztec was gone, and she would not be comforted for many days. End of chapter 32. Recording by Patrick 79.